Hello and welcome to C++ Weekly. I'm your host, Jason Turner. I am available for code reviews and on-site training. If you cannot help me out to your company, you should come to one of the upcoming workshops that I'll be giving. In this episode, we're going to talk about piecewise construct. This thing has been around since C++ 11. Its main use is pair. And pair has a constructor that takes one of these piecewise construct thingies. And this is kind of weird because a pair is a pair of two things. And the piecewise constructor for pair is this tag that gets put in there. And then you take in two tuples of things. And you can observe here that it is actually taking these things by value. But tuples or tuples, I don't care how you pronounce it. I tend to say tuple. Go ahead and flame away in the comments however you want to. Those can hold references or R-value references as well. So that might be relevant to this whole thing. If by some chance you are new to this channel and you've never heard of Compiler Explorer before, this is Compiler Explorer, and it is a handy way for us to test C++ code. Today's episode is sponsored by JetBrains. CLion is a cross-platform JetBrains IDE for C and C++. It is ready for your projects out of the box and has everything you need to stay productive, focused, and in control. Deep language understanding with intelligent code assistance, comprehensive build system support, unit testing frameworks, advanced debugging, and embedded development. Use the code CPPWeeklyCLion to get 25% off when purchasing a new CLion subscription or renewing your existing one. Let's go ahead and include utility because utility is where pair is defined, of course. And I'm going to include, I don't know, maybe string because it has a couple of interesting constructors and string is handy for this kind of thing. If I wanted to make a pair of an int and a string, let's do that. Now I'm going to use these braces to initialize this thing. And in here, this could be parentheses as well. I'm going to do a piecewise construct. This is a globally defined instantiation of piecewise construct T. Now this thing is going to need two tuples. And fortunately, as of C++ 17, we can create tuples much more easily than we used to be able to. So I might be able to do something like this. I can say the first one is a tuple that simply contains the value 3. And the second one, we're going to say create a string that is 10 copies of the letter A. It's kind of in place-like capabilities for pair. Let's make sure we did this correctly. We should see literally a string of 10 A's printed in the output. I could have used puts just as easily for this. This is doing what we expected it to do. Great. That is piecewise construct in a nutshell. Now, one of the commenters on this proposed issue brought this up in relation to map. Map, when you place a value in a map, it is expecting, there's a lot of different ways to add values to maps. Keeping in mind the bracket operator here is actually probably the most expensive way to, because you have to construct an object of the key type and then it's going to have to copy that value or move it after C++ 11. Fortunately, in C++ 26, it gets a slightly more efficient way of doing this. Well, anyhow, that's its whole own thing. We're going to look at the emplace and insert constructors, which I've talked about in other episodes. Now, let's see. Emplace takes just a set of arguments. The arguments to forward to the constructor of the element. So the element itself is a pair. This is important to keep in mind. It's also important to keep in mind that very often when I am slowly leading you through a topic, it's to help encourage the spirit of discovery in yourselves as well. So you're not just watching the video, you're following along and thinking about how we can get from point A to point B. So if I have a map, again, we'll try a map of int to string. I don't want to have two things, both named data. You might be tempted to do something like this, which is a fairly reasonable thing to do, actually. You might also be tempted to do this. This takes all of the parameters for the constructor of the pair. So the equivalent would be something like this. I'm saying in place at location 4, the value hello world. Now this thing returns back to me an iterator to let me know where it was inserted. More than just an iterator, it also returns back a bool to let me know if it actually created a new object. Now notice this, the element may be constructed even if there is already an element with that key in the container, in which case the newly constructed element will be destroyed immediately. See try in place if this behavior is undesirable. And we've done try in place in other episodes. The point of this episode is really to show you one of the more confusing possible ways that you can actually add elements to your container. So this in place, it's taking all of the parameters to the constructor for the pair. So that's going to take exactly 2. Now let's say I actually wanted to in place back this string of 10 A's. Like this. This is going to create a string which will be an R value, which will be implicitly moved into the map. We're going to see if we can actually maybe attempt to see what is happening here. This is a lot of code being generated. So trying to actually step through this would be very, very painful indeed. So let's simplify this. Instead of using a map, let's make a vector of pair of ints and string. This is morally equivalent, except this is something that is much easier to read the assembly in if we were inclined to do that. And often in this show, we are inclined to do that. There we go. And then I am going to see out the 0th element. This code will currently have undefined behavior in it, but we're going to make sure that this value is used so that we don't have the entire thing optimized away. Oh, good. We got a segfault, and we get this handy instruction called UD2. If you have never seen UD2 before, it is your compiler's fun way of letting you know that your program has undefined behavior, but it's not going to tell you about it. So right here, UD2, this is generating an invalid opcode exception. This program is going to crash. The compiler knows this program is going to crash, but the compiler is never going to warn us that this program is going to crash. So it's a fun one to see when you're playing with Compile Explorer. We're going to do the exact same thing that we were just doing a moment ago. The in place back for vector in this particular case is going to again take all of the constructor parameters. And it might give us some way of observing the difference, if any, that is going to occur between these two options. So this time we're going to give it that piecewise construct tag, and then we're going to give it the elements that we want it to construct from. Now becomes the question, did we actually do 2 different things here? I think we did. Pretty sure we did. One will be a move, and the other one will not have a move. I'm very honestly, truly curious whether or not this will generate 2 different binaries. Looks like I was probably right. This did, in fact, make presumably a slightly more efficient binary. So what is piecewise construct? It is a tag type to select a constructor, which kind of in a way enables, kind of lets us in place an emplaced element of a pair in a way. That's kind of a weird way of phrasing it. And using string here, this is, I don't know, maybe a little bit silly. But I think you get the idea. For things that have more complicated constructors with more parameters, this might make more sense, but hopefully this illustrated what piecewise construct is and how and why you might use it. So thank you for watching this episode of C++ Weekly. Be sure to subscribe. Catch you next week.